I found my wife's secret diary. I read every page. And 3 weeks later, I stood up at her birthday party, looked her dead in the eyes, and read her own words back to her, in front of everyone. Folks, Uncle Mickle here. I've held on to this story longer than I should have, and maybe tonight it's time I finally tell it straight, from the beginning, the way it happened, not the way I wish it had. Before I get into this, do me a favor and drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from, and what time it is right now. And if stories like mine hit you where it hurts, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. Helps Uncle Mickle keep bringing you the truth nobody else wants to talk about. All right, lean in. This happened 3 years ago, late fall. Leaves were turning that burnt orange color, the kind that makes you nostalgic even when life is good. Back then, I thought mine was. I was married to a woman named Laura. 10 years. No kids, we tried. But nature had other ideas. Instead, we built a life around each other. Saturday pancakes, lazy TV nights, gardening on Sundays. I thought we were solid. I really did. We lived in a quiet suburb in Minnesota, blue house, white fence, the kind of neighborhood where folks wave even if they don't know your name. I worked construction management, long hours, but honest work. Laura was a freelance graphic designer, so she spent a lot of time at home. I'd come home tired. She'd have dinner waiting. Sometimes pasta, sometimes those little roast chickens she liked. She'd kiss me, ask about my day, and I believed every word she said. Back then, I never imagined I'd one day be standing in front of 30 people, my hands shaking, reading her diary aloud. But life doesn't warn you before it breaks. It just cracks, quiet first, then loud. I remember one Friday. Simple day. I got home early because rain stopped the job site. The house smelled like vanilla candles. Laura loved those. I thought, this is home. This is peace. She was in the kitchen, humming, hair tied up, wearing my old shirt like she always did when she was relaxed. She smiled wide when she saw me, surprised but happy. At least that's what I believed then. That night, we watched some show about couples buying houses they couldn't afford. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and I felt blessed, grateful. Like maybe even without kids, we still had each other. I fell asleep first that night, content. But somewhere in that same house, tucked away in a drawer I never opened, was a little black diary with a red elastic band. Her handwriting, her thoughts, her truth. And it held a story I wasn't meant to read. Funny thing is, the path to that diary didn't start with a fight or a suspicion. It started innocent. A simple Saturday, Laura went to visit her sister, and I decided to clean the house top to bottom. I wanted to surprise her, show appreciation. I put on old blues music, poured myself coffee, and started clearing shelves she always said she'd get to. That's when I saw it, half buried under old birthday cards and tangled charger cables. That diary. No lock, no label, just that red band stretched tight, like it was holding something dangerous inside. I shouldn't have opened it, but I did, because something in me whispered, look. Maybe curiosity, maybe instinct. Hard to say now. I sat down right on the living room floor, sunlight across the pages. I flipped to the first entry, a smile on my face, thinking maybe it was just her thoughts, her dreams, something sweet. But one sentence stopped me cold. Sometimes I wish I'd chosen differently. I didn't understand it then, but that wasn't the worst part. The more I read, the deeper the knife twisted. And folks, what I found next changed everything. Now, before we go back to that diary on the living room floor, you need to understand the life that existed before I opened it. Because betrayal doesn't hit as hard unless you know what it destroyed. I met Laura when I was 32. She was 28, working at a small marketing agency downtown. I was there doing an estimate for some renovations, new conference room, fresh flooring. She was the one who walked me through the office, fast-talking, coffee in hand, explaining the brand vision, while I measured walls and nodded like I understood. She had this easy laugh, the kind that came from the chest, not the throat. Real. That's what pulled me in. I remember she made a joke about the carpet color, called it corporate depression gray, and I laughed harder than I should have. We went out for coffee a week later. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into weekends together. In the beginning, we were that annoying couple that finishes each other's sentences. You know the type. We'd walk through Target and talk about what kind of plates we'd have in our future house, like it was already written. 2 years later, we got married in a small ceremony at a lakeside lodge. Nothing fancy. My brother David as best man, her sister Megan as maid of honor, about 40 people total. I remember thinking, this is it. This is my person. I trusted her more than myself. Those first few years were good. Really good. We rented a small apartment first, saving up for a house. Sunday mornings, I'd make eggs while she sat at the counter in pajamas, scrolling on her tablet, reading me headlines and horoscopes. She always read my horoscope out loud, even though I told her I didn't believe in that stuff. I remember one time she said, "It says you're going to face a big decision soon." I kissed her and said, "Too late. I already chose you." Corny, I know, but that's where my head was. We tried for a kid around year 3. Quietly. No big announcement, just hope. Month after month, nothing. She cried a few times in the bathroom, tried to hide the tests from me, but I saw the boxes under the sink. We went to a doctor eventually, did the tests, had the awkward conversations in cold rooms, with bad art on the walls. The answer was one of those vague things. Unexplained infertility. No one's fault. Just life saying no without explaining why. That season pulled us closer, or so I thought. We decided, okay, then it's just us. We'll travel more. We'll build our own traditions. So we did. Road trips. Weekend getaways. Movie nights with too much popcorn. To the outside world, we looked solid. Even to me, we were solid. But, looking back now, I can't help but replay how some of that solid depended on me never asking too many questions. Happy wives don't hide diaries. By year 7, we bought the blue house with the white fence. That was her dream, the fence. Said it made a house feel like a home. I took extra shifts, longer hours, to afford it. Sometimes that meant I didn't see her awake for 2 days straight. Just a kiss on the forehead before dawn, and the sound of her breathing at midnight when I got home. She started working from home full-time around then. Freelance. More flexibility, she said. She could pick her clients. Work on projects she actually enjoyed. I was proud of her for that. I bragged about her to the guys at work. My wife does design stuff. Works for herself now. She's killing it. I didn't notice at first how much more time she spent in the spare room with the door half closed. Laptop open, headphones in. If I knocked, she'd always pull one side of the headphones off and smile. "Just finishing something for a client," she'd say. Sometimes she'd add, "Deadline's crazy," with that tired laugh. Nothing about that sounded wrong. People work. Deadlines happen. I'd shrug, kiss her head, leave her to it. But little things started to pile up, small, almost invisible. The kind of things you write off because you want to. She started keeping her phone face down. Not all the time, but more than before. If it buzzed while we were watching TV, she'd glance at it and say, "It's just a client," and type back quick. No biggie. Freelancers live on messages, right? Then there were the late-night inspiration sessions. She'd stay up after I went to bed, saying she was in a flow and didn't want to break it. I'd wake up at 2 a.m. sometimes and see the light seeping under the office door. I'd smile to myself, thinking, she's really passionate about her work. Love isn't supposed to feel like guessing. The first real warning sign came one Thursday night, about 4 months before the diary incident. I remember because the game was on, Vikings versus Bears, and I yelled for her to come watch a crazy play. She called back from the office. 1 second. I walked down the hall instead. The door was mostly closed, just a crack. I pushed it gently and saw her jump, alt-tabbing something off the screen faster than I could blink. She pushed her hair behind her ear, smiled too big, and said, "Hey babe, what's up?" I said, "Just wanted you to see the replay." She relaxed, or pretended to. "Oh, sorry, I'm almost done here." I glanced at the monitor. An email window was open. At the bottom, I caught a glimpse of a name before she scrolled. Just a first name. A man's name I didn't recognize. I brushed it off in that moment. Told myself it was nothing. Just another client. But later that night, lying in bed while she showered, that name floated around my mind like a loose screw rolling on the floor. I didn't know it then, But that tiny moment, that one little glance at the screen, was the first crack in the life I thought was unbreakable. And that name, it would show up again, somewhere I never expected to see it. I didn't think much more about that name for a while. Life went on in that comfortable rhythm that fools you into believing everything is fine. But once a seed of doubt is planted, it grows quietly in places you can't see. You don't realize how much space it's taking until it's too late. About a month after the Vikings versus Bears night, Laura started acting different. Not drastically, just small shifts. Subtle enough that if you told me they mattered back then, I would have laughed. But looking back now, those little moments were the handwriting on the wall. For one, she became more protective of her phone. She used to leave it charging in the kitchen or on the couch. Now she carried it with her, even to the bathroom. I remember one morning I joked, "You gonna take that thing with you into the shower next?" She laughed, but it wasn't her normal laugh. It was tight, forced. "Don't be dramatic," she said, turning away just a little too fast. Another thing, she started getting dressed up more often when she left the house. Makeup, earrings, her hair curled. I'd ask where she was going and she'd say, "Just meeting a client at the cafe, networking stuff." And I'd nod, because why wouldn't I trust my wife? 10 years together. You don't throw suspicion at someone you share a bed with. But one Saturday morning, she came out of the bedroom wearing a navy dress I didn't even know she still owned. One of those dresses that hugs the waist just right. I told her she looked beautiful. She smiled, grabbed her purse, and said she was meeting a new potential client named Michael. That name, Michael, it hit me like a whisper behind the ear. Familiar and unwanted. I said, "Oh, is that the same Michael you were emailing the other night?" She froze, just half a breath, then relaxed too quickly. Too rehearsed. "Oh, no, that was someone else. Common name," she said, brushing it away like lint on a collar. "Common name." I nodded, pretending I believed her. Maybe a part of me still did. But something tightened in my chest that morning, a knot I carried with me the rest of the day. That afternoon, I cleaned the garage. Her car was gone for hours, and I caught myself staring at the street every time an engine passed. Waiting, wondering. When she finally came home, she seemed lighter, happier, like she'd just come back from a place where she could breathe easier than she could with me. And that hurt, more than I admitted at the time. She made excuses more often after that. Client meeting. Brunch with Megan. Busy with deadlines tonight. Always with that phone clutched like a lifeline. If it buzzed during dinner, she'd turn it over slowly, just enough to read the notification without letting me see. And every time she smiled at whatever was on the screen, something inside me cracked a little more. There's nothing worse than smiling at someone who's lying to you. One night, she left her laptop open on the kitchen table while she went to take a call outside. I swear I wasn't snooping. I just went to grab a glass of water, and the email preview flashed at the bottom corner of the screen. "Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you." My heart stopped. My hand actually trembled on the water glass. I clicked the email before my brain could tell me not to. It opened to half a message. She must have been drafting a reply. "I miss you too. When can we see each other?" Just that. Simple. Sharp as a blade. Before I could read more, I heard the back door open. I closed the laptop so fast the screen flashed black. I stepped away, pretending to rinse the glass, heart pounding like I'd run up 3 flights of stairs. She came in smiling, though she didn't know she'd left a storm behind her. "Everything okay?" she asked. I forced a breath. "Yeah, just thirsty." She slid the laptop into her bag, without even looking at it, like she already knew what was inside, like she was protecting something fragile and forbidden. That night, I lay awake next to her, staring at the ceiling, listening to her slow breathing, wondering who she was dreaming about, because deep down, though I fought it, I knew something was wrong. But you know what? Suspicion eats you alive if you let it. So I tried to be the reasonable husband, the trusting man I always was. For weeks, I said nothing, watched everything, smiled through dinners, laughed at her jokes. But each time she stepped into the other room to answer a text, each time she came home smelling like cologne that wasn't mine, Each time she said client meeting, I felt that knot twist tighter. And I told myself, I need proof. Because accusation without evidence destroys marriages. But truth destroys them slower. I didn't know it yet, but the proof was already in my house. Hidden. Waiting. In a place I'd never looked before. And fate, or maybe dumb luck, was about to put it in my hands. The day I found her diary, it didn't feel like a discovery. It felt like a verdict. But that wasn't the worst part. What I found inside the diary was. So there I was, living room, quiet Saturday, sunlight across the hardwood floor. Just me. The smell of lemon cleaner in the air, blues music humming low. I'd been dusting shelves, sorting old birthday cards, feeling good about surprising Laura when she got home. A simple act of love, really. Then my hand brushed that little black diary. It shouldn't have meant anything. People keep private thoughts, journals, notes, to-do lists. But that red elastic band wrapped around it tight. It felt like a warning, like something inside was trying to stay contained. I turned it over in my hands for a long moment. The cover was worn at the edges, soft like something touched often. My name wasn't on it, just hers, scribbled on the first page inside the cover. Property of Laura. Do not read. That should have stopped me. I should have put it back and minded my business. But betrayal doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. And something in me, fear, curiosity, maybe survival instinct, whispered back. Look. So I opened it. The first entries were harmless. Art ideas, grocery lists, little notes about wanting to repaint the kitchen. I almost laughed at myself. Maybe this was all in my head. Maybe I'd become paranoid. Then I turned another page, and the tone changed. I feel stuck, like I'm living a life I chose too young. I frowned. We married at 32 and 28, not exactly kids. I turned the page. Mickle is good. Solid. But solid can also feel heavy. My chest tightened. Good. Solid. Like I was concrete holding her down. Another page. Sometimes I wonder what my life would look like if I'd chosen passion over safety. Safety. That word cut deep. Like I was a seatbelt she wanted to unbuckle. I kept reading, heart pounding louder with each line. Michael understands me in ways Mickle never tried to. There it was. His name. In ink. My stomach dropped so fast I felt dizzy. I gripped the diary tighter, knuckles white. Michael, the email. The cafe meeting. The late nights. It wasn't work. It was him. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. When I'm with Michael, I feel alive again. Alive again. As if I was deaf. Another entry. We met at the art show last month. He said I looked like summer. No one talks to me like that anymore. I wanted to close the book, to stop before I reached the point of no return. But once betrayal touches your fingertips, you chase it like a fire. Next page. He held my hand under the table. I didn't pull away. My breath shook. The room felt colder. He kissed me in the parking lot. I kissed him back. There it was. Lacking truth on white paper. My vision blurred. I set the diary down on the coffee table and stared at nothing for what felt like an hour. My wife had kissed another man. Lied to me. Came home and smiled like nothing happened. Cooked dinner. Kissed my cheek. I'm losing her. That sentence drifted through me like a ghost. I don't know how long I sat there before picking the diary up again. Maybe I wanted pain to confirm itself. Maybe I was looking for a sentence that said, I regret it. I'll stop. But that sentence never came. Instead, I found worse. We spent the afternoon at his apartment. I told Mickle I was with Megan. I actually whispered, "Oh God," out loud. My hands shook as I turned pages. Michael says he loves me. I think I love him too. If Mickle knew, it would destroy him. I closed the diary, pressing it tight against my chest, as if squeezing it might change the words inside. My heart felt like it had been cracked open with a crowbar. I didn't cry right away. I'm not ashamed to say that. It was like my body forgot how. I just sat there, a grown man, feeling everything and nothing at once. Eventually, anger found me. Slow at first. A simmer. Then hotter. Sharper. But beneath all of it was something heavier. A grief that felt like drowning standing up. My marriage was over. She just didn't know it yet. I could have confronted her that day, could have thrown the diary at her feet and demanded answers, but I didn't. I put it back exactly where I found it, closed the drawer, cleaned the rest of the house like nothing happened, and when she came home that evening smiling, holding grocery bags, saying, "Surprise, I bought your favorite ice cream," I smiled back. I even hugged her, because something inside me had gone quiet, cold, calculating. If she wanted to live two lives, I'd make her choose one, publicly. But I wasn't ready, not yet. I needed more. More truth. More pages. And the diary had plenty left to tell. But what I found next in those pages, that changed everything. Not just for us, but for everyone who loved her. For 3 days after reading that diary, I moved like a ghost in my own house. Still woke up before dawn for work. Still made coffee. Still kissed her forehead. Still asked about her day with that same calm voice I'd used for years. But inside, everything was different. I was studying her now, watching her laugh at her phone, watching how her eyes lit up at messages not from me. It was like seeing the truth in high definition after living in fog. Funny thing is, she didn't notice a damn thing. She thought she was the actress, and I was the audience. But the moment I read that diary, the script flipped. I wasn't the fool anymore. I was the man in the last row taking notes, planning how the show ends. I'd wait until she left for client meetings. Then I'd pull that diary out, page by page, entry by entry. And folks, that wasn't a fling. It wasn't a mistake. It was a second life she built brick by brick. She wrote about dates, about inside jokes, about how Michael made her feel young, about how he said she deserved better. She described his apartment, gray couch, tall windows, whiskey collection. She even described his laugh. But there was a line that punched the air out of me. He asked if I'd leave Mickle someday. I stared at that sentence, so long the letters blurred. My hand shook. My throat ached. The woman I built a life with was imagining a future without me. And she wrote it down like poetry. I didn't slam the book shut this time. I set it aside and just sat there. Quiet. Breathing slow. Something strange washed over me. Not rage, not grief. Control. Because that was the moment it clicked. She wasn't planning to tell me. She was waiting for me to make it easy. She wanted me to leave first. To crumble. To break. To become the villain who ruined things. So she could walk away clean. "No," I whispered. "You don't get to walk away clean." That was the first time in weeks I felt steady. Grounded. Like the man I used to be. From that moment on, I flipped my role. I didn't want revenge out of cruelty. I wanted truth. Wanted her lies to burn in daylight instead of private shadows. The worst hurt is the one delivered softly. I started planning. Step 1, collect everything. Evidence mattered. Not for court. We didn't have kids. Assets were split fair. This wasn't legal. This was emotional justice. Diary entries. I photographed each page. Every word. Late-night emails. Screenshot when I could. Her schedule. Quietly noted. Call times. Logged. I wasn't frantic. I was methodical. While she laughed on the couch, texting him, I was planning how I'd read her own words back to her someday. Word for word. Sentence for sentence. I know some of you listening might think, why didn't you just confront her? Because confrontation ends the story. Exposure reveals it. I wanted her lies to face witnesses. And fate handed me the perfect stage. Laura had a birthday coming up, her 35th. She loved birthdays. Loved hosting. There would be friends, her sister Megan, my brother David, co-workers, neighbors. Even her parents were planning to fly in from Arizona. A full house. A celebration of Laura, the loving wife, the successful freelancer, the woman with everything. I saw the invitation on the fridge one morning. Pink cardstock. Gold lettering. Join us in celebrating Laura. I stood there reading it, and something in me hardened. That's where it ends, I said under my breath, in a room full of people she lies to. I didn't rush. I let time move. Let her think she was safe. I cooked dinners. Rubbed her shoulders when she complained about deadlines. Smiled during movies she didn't watch because she kept checking her phone. She didn't know I'd already seen her messages to him saying, counting down until I can see you again. She didn't know I'd read her diary entry saying, maybe after the birthday party, I'll tell Mickle I need space. Space. What a cold word for goodbye. I closed the diary slowly, placed it back, and realized I was done hurting in silence. The hurt had calcified into clarity. I would give her space, but not the kind she expected. Not private space to drift slowly from me. No, I'd give her space on a stage, under lights, surrounded by everyone who believed she was loyal. A clean reveal. No shouting. No insults. Just truth in her own handwriting. The calmest man in the room is usually the storm. Every night leading up to that birthday, I rehearsed, not the words, they were already written, but my composure, my breathing, my tone. Because the power wasn't in yelling. The power was in reading softly. 3 weeks passed like that, quiet planning, polite smiles, heart in ice, until the night of her birthday. Lights, music, laughter, glasses clinking, her hand in mine as she thanked everyone for loving her. She looked radiant, glowing in a way I hadn't seen in years, and I knew it was time, because what I did next, that was the moment the truth finally walked into the room. Her birthday night felt like a photograph before it burns. Yellow string lights across the backyard, music low and warm, people laughing, plates full, wine flowing. Laura floated through the crowd like she was hosting the Oscars, hugging friends, thanking everyone, cheeks flushed with attention. She looked happy, too happy for a woman with 2 lives. I stood near the patio door, calm, not shaking, not second-guessing. I'd rehearsed this moment too many times. Happy birthday! Someone yelled, and everyone cheered. Cameras flashed. Laura bowed dramatically. Then Megan, her sister, tapped a glass with a spoon. Everyone. Before cake. I think the birthday girl deserves some words. Applause. All eyes on Laura. She smiled big, hand on her chest. Thank you all for being here. I'm blessed. Truly blessed. That word tasted bitter now. I stepped forward before she could continue. Mind if I say something? I asked, voice steady. She blinked, surprised. But she nodded. Of course, babe. I don't think she'd ever seen me hold the diary before. Not publicly. Not like a microphone. But when I pulled it from behind my chair, conversation died, so fast the music felt too loud. She stared at it. Color drained from her face. Mickle, she whispered. I raised my glass lightly. This is Laura's diary. Her own words. Tonight seemed like a good night to share them. A murmur rolled across the yard. She stepped closer, panic behind her eyes. Mickle, please, don't. But I opened to the page I'd bookmarked. Slowly, like it was scripture. And I read. Sometimes I wonder what my life would look like if I'd chosen passion over safety. Gasps. One woman covered her mouth. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Laura lunged toward me. Hand out. Mickle, that's private. I stepped back calmly. Private stopped when you let someone else into our marriage. Silence. Stillness. Every eye on us. My voice didn't shake. I read the next line. Michael understands me in ways Mickle never tried to. A man in the back looked at her sharply. Megan's face went white. David muttered, "Jesus." Laura's mouth trembled. Mickle, please. I kept going. Short sentences. Sharp hits. I kissed him in the parking lot. I think I love him. If Mickle knew, it would destroy him. Someone dropped a glass. It shattered against the patio tile like punctuation. She reached for my arm. I pulled away gently. No rage. Just truth. You wrote these words. I'm just reading them, I said quietly. She shook her head fast, hair falling over her face. It's not what you think, I can explain. I turned another page. We spent the afternoon at his apartment. I told Mickle I was with Megan. Megan gasped like she'd been slapped. You used me, she said, voice breaking. Laura looked like she couldn't breathe. I closed the diary then. Didn't need to read more. It was enough. Everyone stared, friends, family, co-workers, faces shifting from confusion to sympathy to disappointment. Not at me. At her. She whispered, barely audible. Why would you do this to me? I met her eyes. Not with anger. With finality. Because you already did it to us. She crumpled into a chair, shaking, face buried in her hands. The party atmosphere evaporated, lights glowing over a battlefield instead of a celebration. Michael wasn't there. Funny how men like that never are when truth shows up. Her father stepped forward, jaw clenched, shame in his eyes. Her mother cried softly. People began leaving in silent clusters, pats on my shoulder, awkward eye contact, murmured condolences. I placed the diary gently on the table beside her. You can keep it, I said. Those pages belong to you. She looked up, mascara streaked, voice breaking. Can we talk? Just us. I nodded slowly. Not tonight. I walked inside, grabbed my jacket, and left my own house without slamming the door. I didn't need noise. Truth was loud enough. I drove to my brother David's place. Didn't speak for half an hour after I arrived. Just sat on his porch breathing night air I hadn't tasted in years. Inside that house behind me was a life that had already ended. It just needed the lights turned off. And that diary. It stayed on the table like a gravestone. But the story didn't end at the party. Consequences always come later, quietly like dawn. I stayed with my brother for a week after that night. Didn't answer Laura's messages. Didn't return her calls. I needed space. Real space. Not the kind she wrote about in her diary. The kind where a man breathes without choking on betrayal. David never pushed me to talk. He just handed me coffee in the mornings, beer in the evenings, and let the silence stretch when it needed to. That's the thing about brothers. They don't need all the details to understand when a heart is broken. 3 days in, while we were sitting on the porch watching snow flurries drift under the streetlights, he said quietly, "You didn't deserve that." Simple sentence. I felt it like warmth after standing in the cold too long. Eventually, I went back home. Not because I forgave her, but because it was still my house. My clothes, my tools, my life were inside those walls. The driveway felt unfamiliar as I parked, like returning to a place I used to live rather than my own home. Laura was waiting inside, sitting on the couch with tissues balled in her hands. The diary was on the table, spine cracked from the pages I'd opened. She looked smaller somehow. Fragile. But guilt doesn't always equal love. She stood when she saw me. "Mickle, please. Talk to me." I hung my coat, took my time. Sat across from her, not beside her. The distance was necessary. She apologized, over and over, like she could bury betrayal under enough sorries. She told me she'd ended things with Michael. Said it was a mistake. Said she was confused. Wanted to feel desired. Wanted attention. All the things broken people tell themselves to justify hurting the ones who stood by them. And I listened. Not because I planned to fix us, but because closure isn't a gift for them. It's for us. When she was done, I told her the truth gently. I loved you enough to believe. Forever meant forever. But forever takes two people, Laura. Not one in a diary. She cried. She begged for another chance. Promised counseling. Promised transparency. Promised she'd earn my trust back. I sat with those words. Let them land. Let them echo. Maybe in another life, I would have tried. Maybe before the pages, before the lies, before the birthday party. But once love dies, it doesn't resurrect. It haunts. And I didn't want to live with ghosts. We separated a month later. No screaming. No war. Just paperwork, signatures, division of furniture and memories. She kept the house. I didn't want to sleep under the same roof where she wrote about another man. I took my truck, my tools, some clothes, and whatever piece I could salvage. Starting over at 40-something isn't easy. There's a strange emptiness in waking up alone after years of shared routines. No second toothbrush by the sink. No coffee mugs left out. No humming from the office behind a half-closed door. But slowly, routine rebuilt itself. I rented a small apartment near the river. Fixed it up myself. Painted the walls. Refinished the old wood floors. Work kept my hands busy. But healing lived in the quiet moments. Morning walks, late-night journaling, cooking for one, without feeling lonely about it. And funny enough, the quiet started to feel like freedom rather than absence. People ask if I ever saw Michael. Once. Months later, in town. Passing at a gas station. He recognized me, but pretended not to. Cowards usually do. I looked him in the eye till he dropped his gaze. No words needed. As for Laura, she reached out a few times in the first year. Gentle texts, holidays. Thinking of you messages. I wished her well. I didn't hate her. Hate keeps wounds open. I just didn't belong in her story anymore. I heard she moved states eventually. New job. New circle. Maybe a new man. Maybe not. I don't spend energy imagining her happiness or her regret. Both belong to her, not me. What I do know is this. I'm calmer now. Softer in some places, tougher in others. I learned how heavy loyalty feels when only one person carries it, and how light life becomes when you set it down. Healing isn't a moment. It's a long road with quiet milestones. First night you sleep without crying. First meal that tastes good again. First laugh that isn't forced. First morning you wake up and don't think of them. Eventually, I reached all those points. And one day, without noticing exactly when, I realized I'd forgiven her. Not to forget, but to move forward. Because closure isn't something they give you. It's something you decide. If you've listened this far, you know one thing for sure. Life doesn't always break where you expect it. It splits quiet first, then suddenly. One day you're building a future. The next you're holding pieces, wondering which ones are still yours to carry. I'm not telling this story for pity. I'm telling it because too many folks out there are walking around with truths they're afraid to look in the eye. Sometimes we ignore the signs because love makes us blind. Sometimes we stay because leaving hurts more than staying broken. And sometimes we hold on to someone long after they've let go of us. A diary taught me that love isn't measured by years or wedding vows. It's measured by honesty, consistency, and presence. You can sleep beside someone every night and still be alone. You can live in the same house and not share a life. Betrayal doesn't start with a kiss. It starts with a secret. And secrets grow best in silence. But here's the thing I learned the hard way. Pain is not the end of a man. It's a turning point. You take the hurt. You sit with it. You bleed a little. You curse the ceiling. And then one quiet morning you wake up with enough strength to stand again. You rebuild at your own pace. Brick by brick. Habit by habit. Breath by breath. There's no schedule for healing, only direction. And if you're going through something like this right now, listen to Uncle Mickle. You are not weak for hurting. You are strong for still showing up. People in my life asked if I ever regret reading that diary. The honest answer? No. The truth didn't destroy me. The lie did. The diary just opened the door and let the light in. Finding out the truth didn't break me. It freed me. Some nights I sit on my apartment balcony with a cup of coffee, watching the river move, slow and patient, and I think about how life carries on even when we think we can't. I think about the man I was trusting, maybe too trusting, and I don't hate him. He loved with his whole chest. That's something to be proud of, not ashamed. Would I ever love again? Maybe. I'm not closed off. But next time, I'll pay attention to the quiet places in a relationship, the locked phones, the unexplained smiles, the late-night texts. Not out of paranoia, but out of respect for my own worth. If someone wants to stay, they will. If they want to leave, they don't need keys. They'll find a door. My parting advice is simple. Protect your heart, but don't barricade it. Trust fully, but not blindly. Leave when love becomes memory instead of partnership. And never, ever fear the truth. It hurts. Yes, but it sets you free. So that's my story, folks. If it resonated with you, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I want to know how far Uncle Mickle's voice travels. Final thought. Sometimes the hardest goodbye is the one that finally gives you back to yourself.